You're listening to Peterborough's community radio, Salam Radio. Salam Radio. 106.2 FM.
Assalamu alaikum. This is your very own Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum for Salam Radio 106.2 FM. It's such a delight to be back. And in fact, I think that when I don't quite complete the topic in the previous shows, it sort of lures me back as a means of a good omen, let me say, to come back and deliver this show to you, which is the only health show on Salam Radio, but a very important show on Salam Radio. And I am your very own Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum. On this show, I'm a GP by profession, and I work in a very busy inner city practice within Peterborough, and I absolutely love my job. I love what I do. I love being here in Salam Radio. In fact, I've been working at Salam Radio since 2016, and I never want to leave. So it's great. It's great to be here. So how are you all, listeners? How have you all been? What have you all been up to? I will tell you that today I had such a busy shift, actually, in my practice, in my surgery. And all I was seeing were little ones with coughs, colds, all sorts of infections and ailments. And I thought, goodness me. And a lot of it was down to the fact that the weather's become a little bit more colder. And obviously we've been forecasted in this week that the weather is going to be actually near freezing points. I'm wondering if we will see any snow. What do you think? But anyway, it's great to have you. I always like to talk about contemporary issues. And as you know, the month of November, or you may not know actually, so it's my job to tell you a little bit that there are lots of issues that take place throughout the year in terms of campaigns. And November in particular, from the NHS and from the UK point of view, is actually Men's Health Awareness Month. And it is. And if you remember, in the last couple of weeks, I delivered a show on prostate problems in men. And I think that that's important. I think it's important that we talk about these taboo issues. That's the reason why we like to draw the attention of people to taboo issues, particularly within the Muslim community when it's not spoken about as much. So that's the reason why I thought it would be a good idea to talk a little bit about men's health. And today I'm going to talk about an issue that is particularly close to my heart. It's close to my heart for many reasons, but it's also close to my heart because it isn't spoken about, and we don't talk enough about this issue, particularly within not just the Muslim community, but in the South Asian community. And there are many other communities in which this issue is hidden and isn't spoken about. But before that, I do have to say that any medical information that you gain from this show is generic. It's obviously been researched and there is evidence based behind all the advice that I give. But if anything in this show, in terms of its content, affects you personally and you'd like to get specific information, do consult with your health professional, in other words, your GP, or if you are under the care of a specialist who looks after the particular topic that I will be speaking about today, then do speak to them, because it's very important that you have the right information that is ideal to your circumstances. So, without further ado, I'd love you to speak to me and talk to me on 01733602133. You can text and WhatsApp me on 07411 191062. And as you know, we are always live on YouTube, X, Twitch, and Facebook. Facebook Live. It's my favourite. And we've already got some wonderful comments. Let's see if we've got Mr. Nabil Ilahi. Salams, good evening, Doc. Wa alaikum assalam. It's wonderful to have you on board, Nabil. Thank you very much for joining this show. And we've also got Lee Taylor. Good evening. It's lovely to see you after a while, Lee. Thank you very much for coming and joining. And I hope that this show is of benefit to you. And Nabil says that men's mental health is underrated. Well, I am going to talk about, and that's what my show is going to be all about. It is going to be all about mental health and mental health in men. Now, if you didn't know, it is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. I think that we have to talk more about it. I am very much in favour of us talking about mental health in men in particular. And I've done numerous shows in which I've spoken about mental health, but mental health in men. When we talk about, and I'm not a feminist, but I'm an active supporter of women. I want women to succeed. I believe in women's empowerment, and especially from demographics in which women aren't seen and aren't heard. But that doesn't dismiss the fact that men can sometimes suffer in silence, and that is what this show is about. I'm actually going to name the title of this show Breaking the Silence, and talk about men's mental health here, particularly in the United Kingdom. But before I do that, I am going to give a shout out to one person. I'm going to give a shout out to my own brother, actually. My brother's over, he's staying with me, and him and my husband often have a bit of a chin wag over dinner in the evening. And I was overhearing their conversation. They were so engrossed in conversation, talking about life and talking about the struggles that men face, which were quite right, actually. What they were saying was quite right. And I walked in and I said, right, I'm off. Listen to my show. It's all about men's mental health. And you two gentlemen need it. And he said, there's nothing absolutely wrong with my mental health. He says, I'm here. I'm with my family. I love you all. And it's great. And actually he is. I only have one brother and he's the best brother in the world. So I want to give him a shout out because he's somebody who stays humble, stays away from the limelight, but sometimes it's good. And for me, he is one of those silent heroes who works in the background, helps me, supports me. And he is one of the best brothers that anybody could ever have. So yes, he deserves a shout out. His name's Latif, in case anybody wants to know. You'll be laughing. Why is she giving my name out? But I'm allowed to because I'm his big sister and he's my baby brother. So there you go. That's his shout out. Now, coming back to our topic on a more formal note and on a more serious note, talking about men's mental health here within the UK. And I can see the comments coming in and I'm going to address those comments. I'm going to read your comments out, gentlemen, for those of you that have commented on the live show, that we need to shine light on this issue because it doesn't get enough attention and it affects millions of men across the country. Yet there are indeed stigma, cultural pressures, lack of awareness. And this is what often keeps men away from seeking the help that they need. Well, guess what? This show is here to change that. And over the next hour, we're going to explore the prevalence of mental health challenges amongst men within the UK, and specifically men from the Muslim community, although, like I said, it's generic and it can affect anybody. But the reason why I want to talk specifically about mental health problems with Muslim men in the UK is that we have a real issue in tapping into the demographic of Muslim communities, especially to men when we want to address mental health problems. And I want to be able to help all of you that are listening. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be Muslim, on how to seek help through national, local organisations, and the help that I'm going to advise you here. So local organisations are key. They do an awful lot of work. We have so many of our third sector organisations to thank who are helping people with mental health, established charities, some community interest organisations. So I will be naming them at the end of the show. And it would be good for you to listen in and see, actually recognise the signs if you think you've got a loved one who's suffering from poor mental health. and what you can do for them and how they need to be investigated. But before we move on, we've got Lee, who says, always listening to your show, Shabina. Thank you very much. And he also goes on to say, we try to hide mental health, us men do. That's true. And that's the reason why this show is so important, Lee. And I'm so grateful that you've brought that. And you've also suggested that we talk about chronic pain one evening. I think that's a really good idea. So thank you for the suggestion. I will definitely take that on board. And Nabil, break the stigma of suffering in silence. Absolutely right, Nabil. And he's very lucky to have you as his big sis. Thank you very much, Lee. So continue tuning in and we will most certainly give you an insight on men's mental health. I'd like to talk a little bit about statistics. I think it's really important that we do that. So it's always good to start off every show with facts. Mental health issues are a serious problem in the UK here. They really are a serious problem in Britain, and men are disproportionately affected in some troubling ways. Now, I've got statistics from the charity Mind, which is a leading mental health charity. And Mind says that 1 in 8 men in England has a common mental health problem, such as depression, anxiety, and obsessive compulsive disorder, otherwise abbreviated as OCD. Now, there are a whole wide spectrum of mental health, and it would be very difficult for me to cover all of that in one show. So the generalized, most common mental health issues are depression, anxiety, and personality disorders, as well as OCD. These are the most common mental health problems. So I'd really like for us to focus on that. What the statistics in Mind also go on to say is that suicide, believe it or not, suicide is the leading cause of death in Britain for men under the age of 50. And men account for 3/4 of all suicides. So that's a staggering 75% of all people that die from suicide. Of that, 75% are men. Imagine that. And why is it happening? We've got to ask ourselves why. And the research that we have about this is that it shows that men are less likely to seek help than women for their mental health issues. And the reluctance can lead to untreated conditions, and in severe cases, devastating outcomes like suicide. And I'd like you to hold that thought for a minute, because it really is profound, isn't it? Thinking that somebody can be driven because they just don't have it in them to ask help. They're not strong enough to ask help. They're worrying so much about their environment and what people will think of them, or the stigma associated. And then they go on to take their own life. It really is very sad that we live in a time where somebody could feel so isolated that they see no other path but to take their own life if they're suffering from a mental health problem. So we really need to do something about it. Now, on the flip side, when we look at society, and this is something I'd really like you all to think about. Society has its expectations, and in many ways, men, especially those men that have families, are the breadwinners of their family. And they're conditioned from a very young age to toughen up, to man up. Haven't you all heard it? You need to toughen up, you need to man up, or that men or boys don't cry. This is actually part of a culture. And it's because of this cultural pressure, particularly in some cultures more than others, it is normalized that a man has to suppress their emotions. And this can prevent men from opening up about their struggles, even to close friends and family, because they are locked in this cultural perception that they have to earn, they have to take home their earnings and provide for everyone. A man has to bear the responsibility on their shoulder of making sure that everybody else is comfortable. There are huge responsibilities that men bear in our society, especially those that also may be single fathers and have other greater responsibility where they're playing both the role of the mother and the father in some cases. And then you've got other societal aspects such as financial pressures, housing, poverty, malnourishment, disease, chronic illness. These are other physical and societal aspects that can impact on an individual's mental health and make it worse for them. And that is why it's important to talk about this today. Now, apart from the societal aspect, I'm going to dig a little bit more deeper as to why men, particularly men, what are the struggles that they face and what are some more common reasons as to why men suffer from mental health problems. And it's wonderful that I'm getting all of this input on the show. So Lee again says it's so high because we don't go and talk about things. We don't seek help. You're absolutely right. And that's the reason why we are talking about this now, Lee. Mohammed Abdullah Rizwan, Assalamu alaikum. It's wonderful to have you on board. Thank you so much. I am so happy to see you join. And Mohammed has asked, Salam, can you do the next program for autism for kids? I certainly can. I want to actually get a specialist on board to talk about autism, and if I can get that, that would be wonderful. But certainly I will take your views on board. And Nabil, it is heartbreaking to hear about the stats. The reluctance comes with the bigger worry of the embarrassing element. You're absolutely right. And men all don't man up, men don't cry, all rubbish. Having a good cry is good for everyone. Society and social media has become a great contribution, and we are going to talk a little bit about that as well, Nabil. So thank you so much for your comments. I'm loving the interaction. But if we dig deep into some of the reasons, particularly why men suffer from mental health problems, then they could include, for example, workplace stress. So nowadays there are high pressure jobs that are out there, and financial pressures contribute to anxiety and burnout. So if you get burnout, you then lead to anxiety, low thresholds develop, and that can be a cause for somebody's mental health problems, especially in men. Then you have relationship issues. It's often something that's not openly spoken about by men, and struggles with partners or their family can lead to feelings of feeling isolated or depressed. So when you have relationship issues, men have relationship issues, they can either find themselves not being able to talk about it because men don't openly talk about their feelings compared to women. And that is the statistical fact as well. Unemployment, losing a job, or long-term unemployment can impact an individual's self-esteem and their mental well-being. And trauma and loss, bereavement, childhood trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder from military service are also risk factors to plunge somebody within the spectrum of poor mental health. So we're talking about men here as well. And sometimes all four of these aspects can intersect each other. So financial problems can then strain relationships, creating a cycle of stress and anxiety that goes on and on and on. And you can just see where this goes, that then it can spiral out of control if help is not sought in a timely manner. Now, I am going to dedicate a little segment to Muslim men within the UK. And why do I say that? There have been so many pilots in the United Kingdom and in Britain that have tried to address the stigma of mental health within the Muslim community as a whole. And I know that locally, CPSL Mind has done a pilot project locally to try and address Muslim perinatal mental health in women, but also Muslim men. And it's important to talk about that because it's a Muslim radio station for everyone. But I just like, for those who don't belong to the Muslim faith, it might be a good idea if you know somebody who's a friend who's Muslim, if you study with someone who is Muslim and you're not Muslim yourself, it might be a good idea for you to have a bit of an understanding about the framework within the Muslim culture, which is why many people don't recognize it in the Muslim community. I have Munir Ahmed all the way from Yorkshire, and a very, very good person. I'm so pleased. I'm so overjoyed to see you on the show, Munir. Thank you so much. Wa alaikum assalam. It's wonderful to have you. You've got some great interaction. keep those comments coming in. Now, in the Muslim community, you have cultural expectations where many Muslim men feel immense pressure to be the family's provider, protector, and that can actually exacerbate their feelings of failure during difficult times. And I'm going to give you an analogy. When I was studying for medicine at university, during my final year, I remember doing my house job and I felt over the moon. I was going to qualify to become a doctor. I had aspirations of becoming a surgeon, but that's not relevant right now. That's completely different. But one of my colleagues, who was a Muslim, was sat there looking really glum one day. And I looked at him and I said, "What's wrong with you?" And he says, "It's just dawned upon me that I'm going to have to, after this, don't have much time. I've got to provide for my family. I'm going to have to stand on my own 2 feet. And it's getting me down." Before this, I never really realized all of that. I thought, I'm studying and I was in the safety of my mother and father's own house, but now I see them aging. And it's about time that I started to take life seriously. And it really did. When I was preparing this show, that thought resonated with me, that actually the societal and cultural pressures of the man being the provider, especially within our Muslim communities, is also manifested because there are the elements of commonly living in a combined family system. And with that, you have those responsibility. Muslim communities, we tend to look after our parents financially as well. So there's that expectation, as well as looking after your families here within the UK. There are many Muslim men who have family back home and sometimes extend financial support to them. So all those pressures combined can sometimes prevent them from talking about how they're feeling. So there's the cultural expectation as well. Then you have the element of Islamophobia and discrimination. And let me tell you, we are still in the midst of Islamophobia Awareness Month. I want to acknowledge that. I think it's very important that we talk about religious discrimination, even though it's not a part of this show. But we have to talk about it if we want to recognize the ills associated with it. And what we've got to do then is to find the solutions. So experiencing racism and Islamophobia can lead to feelings of isolation and hopelessness. And this past week, I must say, and I will verbalize that in Peterborough, I have seen an awful lot of racism towards people who have come into our city by no choice of their own. And just having a look at the comments on social media around stigmatizing these people who are predominantly by origin will hail and come and travel from Muslim countries. And it's very important that we acknowledge that aspect. And these are people that have been torn away from their families, separated from them, and are destitute and have escaped, I don't know, persecution, but they have come here for whatever reason in terms of trying to seek safety and sanctuary, and have been exposed to, even before any of us knows them, an awful lot of hatred and discrimination. It is Islamophobia Awareness Month, so discrimination, Islamophobia can make people feel more isolated, which can lead to mental health deterioration. Stigma in the community, a big one. Mental health is often misunderstood or dismissed as a weakness within our communities. And I say our communities because I myself am a practicing Muslim and a proud Muslim. But we have to speak about some of the societal ills that are cultural and not religious. And that's the definition. That's the distinction. And many men avoid seeking help to protect their reputation or their family's honor because they are worried about stigma. So those are some of the reasons why mental health is unique within the Muslim male community, and some of the reasons why they don't talk about it as well. And we also have to talk about the role of generational trauma and the challenges of living as part of a minority group in Britain. So I'd really like to hear from you. Are you a Muslim man who has faced the dilemma of being isolated within Britain because of your faith? Have you been singled out in your place of work? Have you had to face the challenges? Have you felt that you have had to go through things and it's impacted on you more in terms of your mental health? I really want to hear from you if that's the case. So give us a call on 01733 602 133. Text us on 07411 191062. After the break, we're going to talk a little bit about types of mental health illness that are common in men. In the meantime, I can see that Lee has said it's so wrong, isn't it? Having a good cry, let's let it out and you'll feel better afterwards. Saying this, it would most likely be while they're alone. And Mr. Ahmed Zahir, my sister is my proud. Thank you very much indeed. Look, this is a program about males and men's mental health. Let's be open and talk about it. Let today be the day when we crack this nut, whereby we are no longer going to allow this to stigmatize our community. And if you want to be part of that group, join me after the break on the Body, Health and Mind Show. Salam Radio.
You're listening to Peterborough's community radio, Salam Radio. Salam Radio. 106.2 FM.
Satisfy your cravings at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant. Enjoy a tantalising variety of Chinese, Italian, Pakistani and comfort food favourites, from starters to desserts. Kids under 5 dine for free, so bring the whole family to our restaurant at 63 Sycamore Avenue. Open every day from 5pm to 10:30pm. Call us on 01733 313131 or book online to reserve your table. Ibrahimi-restaurant.co.uk. Every bite is a delight at Ibrahimi Buffet Restaurant.
Need a taxi that won't break the bank? Amar Cabs offers safe local rides at affordable prices, starting at £3.99. Get to Heathrow for £120 and London Stansted or London Luton for just £88. Private school and executive business class drop-offs are also available. Booking is easy. Go to www.amarcabs.com and download our app on Android or iOS, or call 01733 555 888. Wherever you're headed, Amar Cabs is just a tap away with reliable, affordable rides starting at just £3.99.
Craving authentic Desi flavors? Look no further than Desi Restaurant. From midday until 1 in the morning, enjoy our homemade specialties that will transport your taste buds. Indulge in tantalizing papri chaat and savor the rich Chersi Kadahi. Treat your friends to our fresh 1 kilogram Chersi lamb handi. Plus, get 2 12-inch pizzas for $11.95. Located at 298 Lincoln Road, we deliver from lunchtime until 1 a.m. Call 01733 555 795 now to order and experience Desi Restaurant's flavors.
Are you a savvy shopper searching for the best food deals? Look no further. Adams Cash and Carry can help you save big. We're not just a food wholesaler for takeaways and restaurants. We also welcome household customers at our warehouse in Westwood, Peterborough. Visit our website and enjoy wholesale prices on everything from drinks to flour, rice to burgers and much more. To shop, go online and collect in store. Visit adamscashandcarry.co.uk today to start your savings spree.
For the top pizza in Peterborough, visit Top's Pizza, established in 1988 for delicious pizzas with freshly made dough daily. View the extensive and mouthwatering menu online at topspizza.co.uk, then choose from traditional tasty toppings, something different, or create your own with fresh 100% halal meats, salads, veg and a great choice of sides too. Call into Top's Pizza, 52 Broadway, PE1 1SB. Call 01733 913 775 or order online for delivery or collection.
Do you own a restaurant or takeaway? Cater Fair is an expert supplier of new and used commercial catering equipment. Visit caterfair.co.uk for quality equipment on sale at the lowest prices. Or call us on 01733 310 115 or visit us at 11 Royce Road, Fengate, Peterborough.
Whether you visit the Berry Furniture Showroom at 78B Fengate in Peterborough or view and buy online, you'll be amazed at the quality and style you could enjoy in your home. With beds from just £299 and complete 321 sofa sets from less than £1,000, you'll also be amazed at their wholesale prices too. Plus, there's a 1-year free warranty on sofas and beds, subject to conditions. Find out more, click on Berry, that's BERRE furniture.co.uk, or call 01733 300 517.
Peterborough's community radio station, Salam Radio, 106.2 FM.
Welcome back. It is your very own Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum for Salam Radio 106.2 FM. And we are all the talk about men's mental health. And why shouldn't we? We really need to take the bull by the horns on this one. And I'm so glad that we have so many men interacting. But where are the women? I'd love to see the women. Come on, let's have you supporting the men on this very important issue. And in fact, I always say, as I say, I'm very supportive of women, and I'm even more supportive of those men who support women. And in the same way, when we're talking about men's mental health, I'm incredibly supportive of men, but I'm also very supportive and applaud those women who support men. So stick your supportive comments on the show. Text me on WhatsApp on 07411191062. But yes, if you want to chat, it's 01733 602 133. I'm your very own Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum. Now, before the break, we were talking about the reasons why men are more susceptible to deterioration of mental health, more so in the Muslim community, why it's stigma, the culture around it, what we've got to do to crack it is what we're going to be discussing in the second half of the show. But before I do proceed, I do have a question from Nabil Ilahi, which reads, what's the best way to encourage a friend who might be struggling to open up from an ethnic background where cultural differences can clash with one's mental health? It's a very good question. You need to talk to them about it. And actually, the first step that you can undertake is foster an understanding and say that you understand that culturally it is difficult for them to open up and that it won't be as accepted as it is within other demographics. It's about acknowledging that the culture that that individual is a part of is relatively different and sees mental health or the stigma of mental health differently to other cultures, but that there is no shame whatsoever in opening up about it. In fact, I always say to every single person or patient that comes to me that's a man that talks about their mental health towards the end, I say the reason why you've picked up the phone is because you've acknowledged that you have a problem and you are seeking help for it. Am I correct? And the answer 100% of the time is yes. And when somebody says they want help, that means they've got something very powerful, and that is the powerful of insight. And what does insight mean? Insight means that they have the realization that something is wrong with them. They recognize their symptoms. They recognize that that is not their normal self and that they want to get some help to get better. And that is your most powerful tool, gentlemen, for those of you that are listening. The minute you realize that there's something wrong with you and in some corner of your mind you feel that you need help, that is your first step to recovery. And I say to every single patient who comes to me, I give them a tap on the back and I say, well done you. You should be proud of yourself, because that step in itself is very difficult to make. So remind them, Nabil, of their insight, that they've got the ability to recognize that something's not right, even though they may not be able to open up, but that actually that is a step in the right direction. So I hope that that answer's helped you. Now, in terms of treating and supporting, there are lots of options, and I'm going to talk a little bit towards the end of the show about what is available locally. And we can be very thankful. I always say nearly on every show that we are so blessed to have the NHS here in Britain. NHS services are free at the point of contact. They are growing in provision, and I know there are certain challenges around waiting lists, etc., especially with mental health services, which is why shows like this are so important, to make sure that you're not alone and that you are heard, and that even if you're just watching this show and taking something from it, know that I'm here because I get it, and that it's hard, but you will get through it. Okay? So that's the thing that I need you to understand. Now, when we talk about mental health, we can take depression, for example, and there are grades of depression. So you have mild, moderate, and severe depression. And if we talk about mild symptoms, it's sort of not feeling great over the previous 2 weeks and not enjoying the things or finding pleasure in what you usually do anymore. And if you recognize that that's you, then you probably have some form of depression or mental health deterioration. And for that, I think that it's really important that we talk about some of the things. Some things are in the way of cognitive behavioral therapy and talking therapies. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy, I'm a big fan of, because cognitive behavioral therapy aims to dig deep into the reasoning behind why you're feeling the way that you are. And it tends to, in very simple language, by the way, pick you up and put you in another headspace, so that you look at things from a different perspective. And often, when you are feeling low in yourself, you don't have the ability, and especially men don't have the ability to think a little bit more outside the box. They need somebody to tell them or give them a different perspective. And although I don't currently suffer from a mental health problem, I did suffer from postnatal depression with our first, and I'm very open about that. And it's those people that survive mental health, that have lived experience, that can tell their story and share their story and improve the lives of others. But the person that played a key role in my life and given me a different perspective to things is and always has been my husband. And he's a wise old owl. I don't know if he's listening, but he had the knack of being able to take a situation and give a totally different perspective to it that I never thought of. And cognitive behavioral therapy does that. When you feel within your own frame of mind and thought process that it's because of this, and you've got low self-esteem and you're beating yourself up, especially if you're a man, cognitive behavioral therapy aims to channelize those thoughts and make you see things differently, so that you realize, well, I never actually thought that. And it's a bit of what you call brain training, okay? Brain training. So it's about training the brain to think differently. And that's what cognitive behavioral therapy does. And it's a fancy word, but it's important to break it down to make it understandable. So that's what cognitive behavioral therapy does. And then you have counseling. Now, counseling, granted, it's an established form of therapy, okay? But counseling isn't for everyone. There are many people, especially men, that feel very hesitant about speaking to somebody they don't know, who then, many have told me, tell them how they're going to feel again. And when there are people, especially men, who revisit those feelings with a counsellor, it makes their pain feel renewed, and their mental health issues and the way that they're feeling not any better. But that doesn't happen to everybody. It happens to some. It's very, very useful for a lot of people, but there are a proportion of people who don't find it affecting, and everybody is different. Going back to the comments, we've got some great comments and interaction here. So Adam Marshall, hello Adam, it's lovely to see you. Adam's a wonderful young boy, I would just like to say. Adam's a wonderful mother. Sarah is a colleague of mine in the practice that I work. She helps look after people. So Adam is a wonderful young man of a wonderful mother. And Adam said you'd be absolutely amazing doing talks at school, Shabina. I agree 100% with what you're saying. Well, send me an invite and I'll come to your school, Adam. I would love to do that. And Jason, as a male, there is a stigma to stay strong under extreme pressure. I did this for years in military service. Men need to open up more. Talking is always the way forward. I'm so glad you've said that, Jason. You have a lived experience. It is relevant. It is pertinent. It is important. And it educates everybody. It educates every one of us. I learned so much from speaking to you about your experiences. So never underestimate the power of the impact that you have on people's lives, because you are doing a wonderful job. And Nabil Ilahi, can I ask what one can do when one is in a mental health crisis, when NHS 111 option 2 is over 40 minutes waiting time? That is such a good question, Nabil. And actually, that is the reason why I highlighted that it is very important that we get our mental health system right. It's not perfect. There are waiting times. Now, if the person is at imminent risk of hurting themselves or any member of the public, then you have to call the police. But if they are so broken, and if there is any way of getting them to the accident and emergency department because you feel that their life is at risk, then that would be the next port of call. Okay, so I hope that that's answered your question. And then we have Munir Ahmed. So Munir Ahmed, the problem amongst the Muslim community is that sometimes we drift away from men who have mental health problems, thinking he is not mentally right and we shouldn't interfere, whereas we should help and support this person. It should be recognized that this is also an illness, just like a physical illness. When someone is physically ill, we wish them well and help them or look after them. It's recognizing that mental illness is serious and should be taken serious. Now, that is a very important point. I would really like to thank you, Munir, for bringing that point out. But we do. The problem that there is in the Muslim community is, as soon as you recognize that there is a man that has a mental health problem, we tend to see a drifting away from people, and that shouldn't have to happen, which is why shows like this and input like yours is so important. Those of you that are listening, I'd really like you to listen back on these comments, or if you are indeed on Facebook, like the Salam Radio page. I encourage everybody to do so and listen and look at these comments, because they are so helpful and so important. I'd really like to thank you for that input, Munir. So we've spoken a little bit about talking therapies and then medication. Now, if somebody's depression or anxiety has become that bad that cognitive behavioral therapy or counseling hasn't helped, they may have moderate depression. And a lot of people, especially men, really, some of the time when I'm speaking to a lot of my patients, the first thing they will say is, I don't want medication, but they've tried everything else. And actually, we need to remove the stigma around taking medication. So there are myths that medication is addictive, medication gets you hooked onto certain things. And I think that we have to remove that through this show. So what do medications do? And I'm going to put it so simple that I'm sure that you'll be able to get it. Now, just think of, and men will get this, those that drive and those that like your cars, you will get this. Just imagine you've brought yourself a new 0-meter Mercedes-Benz. It's shiny, it's brand new, and you're driving it along the roads and its shock absorbers are nice and clean. You hardly feel the speed bumps as you were driving along the road, correct? Yes, because those shock absorbers are brand new. Now, compare the receptors in your cell, in your brain, as being exactly the same as shock absorbers. And when I use the word shock absorbers, I use them deliberately because they have the ability, those brain cells have the ability to filter out negative when you're a little child and factor in the positive. So when children are little, they get told off, they'll cry, they'll be hurt, and then they'll forget about it. They'll bounce back very quickly because it is the receptor in the brain that it has the ability to balance out the negative with the positive. Now, imagine this car. We're going back to this car again. You've clocked 100,000 miles on that car. And now it's a rusty old not BMW, sorry for those people who like BMWs. I'm using a Mercedes as an analogy because I personally like Mercedes. So I'm not being discriminatory here, okay? So you drive that Mercedes, it's clocked 100,000 miles on the car, and trust me, because its shock absorbers are clogged up, you will feel every single pothole, speed bump resurface that's uneven on the road, you will feel it, okay? And if you're taking someone's granny and dropping her off somewhere, she's going to feel it as well. So it's the same with those brain receptors. As you grow older, the efficiency of those receptors decrease. And those people that have the stimulus or are being exposed to more negative than the general population, their shock absorbers in their brain are working extra hard. The receptors are working extra hard. They can't keep up. And what happens? They get clogged up with negativity. And that is when somebody can then say they are unable to function properly and get depressed. So what do antidepressants do? They clean out those shock absorbers. They clean out those receptors. That is putting antidepressants' functions in the most simplest of words. And they are not addictive. It just takes time for them to assert their effect, which takes between 4 to 6 weeks, by the way, and not every antidepressant suits everyone, okay? It can be that you suit a particular antidepressant, but it takes around 4 to 6 weeks for them to clean out those little receptors in your brain, and that is when you start seeing the effects. And then you stay on them if you're ever taking antidepressant medication for the first time for 6 months. And if you feel better after 6 months, you have a review with your GP, and your GP then slowly, over 2 weeks, takes you off most antidepressant medication so that you don't get rebound symptoms, so that your receptors, who are now freshly cleaned out, unclogged, your shock absorbers are cleaned out, they don't get smacked with a whole load of negativity mud again. So it's important that you wear off and wean off medication. So it's not about being addictive to these medications. It's about becoming accustomed to be weaned off without them. So I hope that's made that clear as well. And I think that it's really important that I tell you about the stigma surrounding medication, because there are far too many people. I'm not somebody that likes medication per se in terms of depression. I always try to stress on good sleep, good nutrition, keeping hydrated, exercise. Exercise is a wonderful physical way of releasing those endorphins and making sure that you have enough to keep you going by. It just releases all those happy hormones as well. And being around people that are positive, not watching or not reading anything that's negative, not listening to sad music, these are all natural things that you can do and implement to make yourself feel better. And also I'd like to add that many people that fall into depression turn to drugs and alcohol. And they use it as a coping mechanism. And that is why it's wrong to stigmatize people who are taking drugs, because they may have a story behind them, but it's the wrong thing to do. It's not the way to deal with your mental health. So I think it's important to put that out there at this point too. And if you've just joined us on this really exciting show that I'm seeing on the wonderful interaction, okay, I want you to talk to me on 01733602133, and I want the women to talk to me. I've got all these wonderful men who are listening, which is wonderful. I've got Munir Ahmed, perfect example, Dr. Shabina. Thank you so much, Munir. And then we have Jason McNally. I'm chemical free. I discovered mindfulness. For me, it's a powerful coping mechanism. I think it's wonderful, Jason. I'm so glad that you do. And then we have Nabil Ilahi. It's also the people that surround yourself with too, that you surround yourself with too. That's absolutely right, because if you surround yourself with people that are doom and gloom and negative, it's not really going to enhance you. Enhance yourself with happy people. Enhance yourself with people that will praise you, that will enhance you. And those that don't, who always complain, who always have something to criticize you by, just cast them away. Draw boundaries. You don't need to be exposed to that. And I speak from a level of personal experience as well. I cast anybody away who doesn't enhance my life, who doesn't bring anything positive to it. You deserve to be loved. You only have one life to live. If you want to live it in the best way possible, surround yourself with people that are going to enhance you and not bring you down. They have no place in your life whatsoever. And that's me saying that to you. So I hope that that's sort of concluded that aspect around medication and coping mechanisms as well, and regular exercise. You know, I was once given a talk by somebody who advised a prime minister of this country, would you believe it or not? And one of the things, he had a very stressful job. He was a man. He started to suffer from poor mental health. And the way he used to deal with his very high pressure job was he used to go to the gym for a workout, an intense workout. And he never used to exercise himself to the bone, but he used to exercise himself enough to stimulate his mind that would release all that pressure that had been pent up during the day. So exercise, I cannot underestimate the importance of good exercise as well. I think that's really important. And, you know, peer support groups. Now, there are some people that have spoken to me and said, you know, I don't want to go into this group and talk to other people about things. And I tend to, in some ways, agree it's not for everyone. But if you feel that you are a talkative person, you want to share your experience, or actually you want to feel empowered because you know that you have the ability to make others feel better, there is no harm in doing so. And I also find that listening to audible books is a great way of keeping your mind distracted. I listen to audible books regularly. It keeps me focused. It keeps me prepared. I have a routine in life, and it's something that I greatly look forward to it. And it actually adds to your knowledge. I know life has become so busy, but any of you who are men suffering from poor mental health, if you are able to invest in an audible app in which you can listen to books, not depressing books, but intellectual books that will enhance and elevate your mood, it's absolutely worth it. And on the other end, you've got somebody who's talking to you. So please do. There's a whole range of books that you can listen to that are available on a website called keepyourhead.com. All you've got to do is Google Keep Your Head Peterborough, and it is absolutely awash with local resources that can help you. So please do go and try that as well. Now, I can see that we're running out of time, but what I want you to understand is that do remember, and I know this as a doctor, that no two journeys are the same. What works for one person might not necessarily work for the other. You know yourself and your body more than anybody else does. Do think of seeking professional advice if you just think you can't do it on your own. There is absolutely no shame in doing so, and you will be given a treatment plan that is tailored to your needs. Don't underestimate the power of professional help. And there are some great organisations that can help. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some organisations in Peterborough that can help, because we are a Peterborough radio show, but I will also draw on national organisations as well. So we've got the Cambridgeshire, Peterborough and Lincolnshire Mind, which offers counselling, peer support and community projects. You've also got something known as Lifecraft, which is more based in Cambridge, but it's actually a user-led organisation which provides creative and therapeutic services. Then you've got Peterborough's Men's Shed, which is a community project that promotes mental well-being through social and practical activities. And I also know Nabil is the chief executive of a community organisation, which isn't an established charity yet, but I know he's working hard towards it, known as Peterborough Prime. And that is very big on mental health and trying to help people within the city. I know that Nabil is a young man that is very keen and eager to help others that are suffering from poor mental health. So I think it's important that we signpost to those organisations as well. So well done, Nabil. And he's been very interactive on the show today. So I thank him for his input too. And I am going to talk a little bit about apps. So Smiling Mind, wonderful app. I do mindfulness every day. Smiling Mind is a free app. It's free of charge. It'll take you through about 30 to 60 questions. You answer them, and it should tailor programs to your personality. Smiling Mind. Look it up. It's a picture of a little cloud that's smiling, and it's quite cute. So download it. Do it every day before you go to bed. I often fall asleep and doze off whilst I'm doing it, which is great. And then you've got Calm, which is a national organisation, and it's a helpline for men struggling with depression or even suicidal thoughts. Their number is 0800 585858. It is a free resource. Then you have the Samaritans, who are there 24/7, and they have a helpline on 116 123. And then you also have the Muslim Youth Helpline. They're specifically supports young Muslims struggling with mental health. Now we're coming to the last minute. Look, I really hope that this has helped some of you. For those that haven't commented or couldn't comment, you're not alone. There is help out there. I've absolutely loved doing this show. I think it was really important. It was a long time coming. I hope you benefited from it. Thank you, wonderful listeners, for putting your input in. Lee, Nabil, Ilahi, and also Jason and Munir and Adam. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to have you all on board. And my last thing is definitely going to be that women, support your men. If you see somebody who's suffering from mental health, they aren't alone. All right. And with that, until next time, my wonderful listeners, it's been an absolute pleasure from your very own Dr. Shabina Asad Qayyum. It's good night from me, and most of all, Assalamu alaikum.
Stay tuned to